Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into something lots of us have at home, houseplants.
Hmm.
And, if you're anything like the listeners writing in, you love having them around, but keeping them, well, happy. That can feel a bit daunting sometimes.
Yeah, there's just so much info out there, isn't there? It's easy to get overwhelmed.
Exactly. So our mission today, we want to sort of cut through that noise, give you some really practical, usable knowledge.
Right. We've gone through a bunch of different sources, guides from places like Lowe's, The Spruce, expert advice from universities like Iowa State, Tree Care Zone.
Even looked at what people are saying on Reddit and other, plant
Yeah,
forums.
trying to get a real cross-section.
So basically, we're aiming to equip you to feel more confident. We're focusing today on arguably the two biggest things, light and water.
The fundamentals, really. Get those right, and you're halfway there.
Okay, let's start with light then, because it
Yeah,
feels like the first hurdle.
it really is. You
Yeah.
gotta understand what your space actually offers. Think about your windows. A south-facing window. That's your prime real estate for light. Lots of bright, often direct sun.
Okay, south is high beam. What about the others?
East and west windows are more like medium.
Hmm.
They get good light, but it's often more indirect, especially for part of the day. Morning sun from the east, afternoon from the west.
Gentle wake-up call or afternoon glow.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And then north-facing windows. Those are your low light zones. Consistent, but much less intense light. Good for plants that don't need a lot of sun.
But here's something I found interesting. I think it was from that Room for Tuesday blog. There's a difference between a plant tolerating low light and actually thriving in it.
Oh, absolutely. That's a crucial distinction.
Yeah.
Lots of plants will survive in lower light than ideal, but they won't grow much, maybe look a bit sad. Thriving is different.
They won't be putting out new leaves or looking lush.
Exactly. To get a bit more technical, MU extension talks about light intensity using foot candles.
Foot candles, okay.
Yeah, it sounds complicated, but it's just a measurement. Think of low light as like 25 to maybe 200-foot candles, just enough to read by, sort of.
Okay.
Medium light is brighter, maybe 200 to 500, and high light is 500 to 1,000, even more. Pretty bright, almost like outside on a cloudy day.
Got it. So what if you've got a room with basically zero natural light or just not enough? Are you doomed to fake plants?
Not necessarily. That's where grow lights come in. They've gotten really good, actually.
Right, I've seen those. What kind should people look for?
Well, the Spruce has a good rundown. For most homes, full-spectrum LEDs are usually the best bet. They try to mimic natural sunlight, they're energy efficient, and they don't put out a ton of heat.
Full spectrum LED.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can't just stick it anywhere, I assume.
No, placement matters. You generally want it pretty close, like within a foot or so of the plant. And timing is important too.
Ah, right. You don't leave it on 24/7.
Definitely not. Plants need a rest period, darkness, just like we need sleep. So maybe 12 to 18 hours of light per day, then off.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's say a plant isn't getting enough light. What signs should we look for? How does it, tell us?
You'll often see physical changes. Iowa State mentions succulents, for instance.
Hmm.
They might get really stretched out, uh, pale looking, like they're literally reaching for light.
That leggy look.
Exactly. Or if it's a rosette type, the leaves might flatten out instead of staying tight.
Hmm.
And the spruce notes that some plants, like dragon trees, might just start producing smaller leaves than usual.
Smaller leaves. Interesting. So subtle signs, too. Now, what if you realize your plant's been in the dark too long and you think, aha, I'll move it to that sunny south window? Bad idea.
Whoa, yeah, slow down. Iowa State warns about that. Sudden, drastic changes can actually shock the plant. It can get sunburned, you'll see brown or bleached spots on the leaves.
Like us going to the beach without sunscreen after winter.
Pretty much. Gradual transitions are always better if you're making a big change in light levels.
Okay, light decoded. Mostly. Now, let's talk water. This feels like the real danger zone for a lot of people.
It really, really is. Overwatering. It's got to be the most common way people accidentally kill their houseplants. Tree Care Zone, Plantify, they all say it.
Why is it so bad? It's just water, right?
Well, yeah, but roots need air too. When the soil is constantly waterlogged, there's no space for air and the roots basically suffocate.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And that leads to root rot, which is nasty fungal stuff. And then the plant can't even take up the water or nutrients it does need.
So you're trying to help, but you're actually drowning it. What are the warning signs? How do we know if we're being too generous with the watering can?
Plantify lists a few key things. Yellowing leaves are a big one, especially if it's the new leaves or leaves just dropping off.
Right.
And weirdly, wilting can also be a sign of overwatering because the damaged roots can't absorb water anymore.
That's counterintuitive.
It is. Also, look out for mold or white fuzzy stuff on the soil surface. And fungus gnats. Those
Yeah.
tiny little flies love soggy soil.
Fungus
Yeah.
gnats, bane of my existence.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so how do we avoid creating this swamp?
Good drainage is paramount. Use pots with holes. Can't stress that enough.
Drainage holes, check.
Tree care zone suggests watering in the morning so excess moisture has time to evaporate during the day.
Mm.
You could also try a moisture meter. Stick it in the soil. Takes out the guesswork.
Those little probe things.
Yep. And maybe big plants that suit your style. If you tend to overwater, maybe avoid succulents. If you forget, maybe get succulents.
Good point.
But the main thing, for most plants, is letting the top inch or two of soil dry out before watering again. Iowa State, Lowe's, they all emphasize this. For succulents, Lowe's even says let it get bone dry.
Bone dry for succulents. Got it.
Mm.
Okay, but what about the other end? Underwatering. It happens.
It does, yeah. Maybe less fatal, usually,
Yeah.
but still not great for the plant. Signs are kind of what you'd expect: droopy, wilting leaves, maybe curling inwards.
Looking sad and thirsty.
Exactly. Leaf edges might turn brown and crispy. The soil might actually pull away from the sides of the pot, and the pot will feel really light.
Okay, and pests can be an issue too.
Yeah, Plantify mentioned spider mites can actually thrive in dry conditions. So underwatering isn't harmless either.
So how do we know for sure when it is time to water? Not too soon, not too late.
The classic finger test is pretty reliable. Stick your finger in the soil up to your first or second knuckle. If it feels dry, it's probably time.
Simple enough.
Iowa State also mentions using a clean wooden chopstick. Push it down into the soil, pull it out. If it comes out clean and dry, the plant likely needs water. If soil sticks to it, it's probably still moist enough.
The chopstick test. I like that. Any plants with really specific water demands we should know about?
Oh, definitely. Peace lilies are famous for being drama queens. The spruce notes, they wilt very dramatically when dry.
Yeah, they look totally dead.
But usually you water them and poof, they bounce right back.
Yeah.
Succulents, though, are the opposite. Infrequent watering is key.
Right. We said bone dry. How often is that, typically?
Depends on the conditions, but Lowe's suggests maybe every couple of weeks. Succulents.net agrees let it dry completely. They're so prone to root rot if you overdo it.
And how do they tell you they're thirsty if they don't wilt dramatically?
Their leaves might start to look a little shriveled, buggered, not plump like usual. And again, check that soil. If it's dry way down deep, it's time.
Puckered leaves. Good visual. What about sometimes you see water actually dripping from the tips of leaves? Is that bad?
Ah, yeah, that's called guttation. The Indoor Plant Care Guide mentions it. It's basically the plant getting rid of excess water through pores in the leaves.
So maybe a sign you've watered a bit too much.
It can be, yeah. Or just that the soil is holding a lot of moisture. It's usually harmless,
Yeah.
but constant guttation might mean the conditions are a bit too wet.
Okay. So light and water. But the stuff the plant sits in matters too, right? Soil and pots.
Hugely important. Tree Care Zone calls using the wrong soil a really common mistake. It all comes down to drainage and aeration air for the roots.
Right. Different soils drain differently.
Totally. Think sandy soil, water rushes through, doesn't hold much.
Yeah.
Clay soil holds too much water, gets waterlogged. Loamy soil is that nice balance in between.
And for most houseplants.
You want well draining, especially for plants in lower light because the soil dries slower anyway, and definitely for succulents. Jomo Studio in Iowa State really stress this.
So just grabbing dirt from the garden is a no-no.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah.
Jomo Studio points out garden soil is often too dense, compacts easily in a pot, and can bring in pests or diseases.
Ah, okay. So potting mix is the way to go. What's usually in that stuff?
It's usually a mix designed for containers, often has peat moss or coconut coir to hold some moisture, but then things like perlite or vermiculite to keep it light and airy.
Or light. That's the little white crunchy stuff.
That's the one. Creates air pockets, helps drainage. Wikipedia mentions these common ingredients too.
And succulents need something even faster draining, right?
Definitely. You can buy a special cactus and succulent mix, or, as Lowe's suggests, amend regular potting mix with sand and perlite. Some Reddit folks aim for like 50% grit perlite, pumice, coarse sand.
Coarse sand. Okay. Not just any sand.
Right. Jomo's Studio warns against using fine play sand, or beach sand. It can actually clog the pores in the soil and make drainage worse. Needs to be gritty.
Got it. Gritty mix for succulents. Now, the pot itself, we mentioned drainage holes.
Non-negotiable. Gotta have them. Tree Care Zone, Wikipedia, everyone agrees.
But what about the material, like terracotta versus plastic? Does it matter?
It does make a difference, yeah. Wikipedia notes terracotta is porous. Air and moisture can move through the clay itself, so the soil dries out faster.
Which could be good if you tend to overwater.
Exactly. It's more forgiving. Plastic or glazed ceramic pots are non-porous, so they hold moisture longer. You just need to be a bit more careful not to overwater in those.
Okay, that makes sense. What about pot size? Does bigger mean better?
Not necessarily. You don't want the plant swimming in a giant pot. Tree Care Zone advises only going up one size, maybe an inch or two wider than the current root ball.
Why is that?
Too much extra soil holds excess moisture that the roots aren't using yet, which again increases the risk of root rot. But you also don't want it totally root bound in a tiny pot. Just slightly bigger is usually best. And plant advice very clear. Never use a pot without drainage holes. Just don't do it.
Drill holes if you have to.
Yep. Okay, one more pot-related thing. That old advice about putting pebbles or gravel in the bottom for drainage.
Yeah, I've heard that forever. Does it work?
Turns out,
Oh.
nope. Jomo Studio actually debunks this. It seems like it should help, but it actually creates something called a perched water table.
A what now?
Basically, the water doesn't drain easily from the fine soil into the coarse gravel layer. So the water sits above the gravel, meaning the soggy layer is actually higher up, closer to the roots.
Wow, so it makes things worse.
It can, yeah.
Yeah.
Better to just use good draining soil in a pot with holes.
Okay, mind blown. Another myth busted. So, tying this all together, maybe some quick examples. Low light plants, for instance.
Sure. We mentioned snake plants, ZZ plants, cast iron plants, peace lilies. Those are often touted as low light tolerant. And generally, because they're in lower light, they use less water, so you water them less frequently.
But not no light, right?
Right. As Room for Tuesday pointed out, they still need some indirect light. They won't thrive in a closet. The spruce also notes some plants labeled low light, like nerve plants, actually do better with bright indirect light and can be tricky.
Good to know. Any others?
Wax plants, Hoyas, tolerate low light pretty well and can handle drying out a bit. Heartleaf philodendrons are similar, good in low light but might get leggy. Lucky bamboo is weirdly adaptable, can handle quite deep shade.
So there's variation even within low light.
Definitely. And MU Extension has a great list matching lots of common plants to their preferred light and moisture levels. Like African violets want medium light and stay moist, whereas jade plants love bright light and hate being overwatered. It's worth looking up your specific plants.
Super helpful. Okay, as we wrap up this leafy deep dive, what are the absolute must-remember points for everyone listening?
I'd say, number one, know your light. Figure out what your room actually offers. Number two, learn your plant's specific water needs. Don't treat them all the same. Avoid the soggy bottom in the bone-dry desert, unless that's what the plant actually wants, like a succulent.
Right, and pots and soil matter.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Well-draining mix, pot with holes, right size. And finally, just observe your plants, look at the leaves, feel the soil. They'll usually give you clues if something's off.
Become a plant detective.
Kind of, yeah. Pay attention.
Great advice. It really is about tuning in.
Exactly. And maybe one last thought to leave people with.
Mm-hmm.
Think about where your plant originally came from in the wild.
Ah, its native habitat.
Yeah. A plant from a shady, humid rainforest floor is going to want very different things indoors than a plant from a dry, sunny mountainside, right? Understanding its origins can tell you so much about how to care for it best. Maybe do a little research on your favorites.
That's a fascinating angle. Food for thought. Well, thanks for digging into details with us today.
My pleasure. Happy planting.